Thanks very much. Can you hear me okay? About, yeah? I'm going to read a little from the Cassandra poems this evening, but I'm also going to read some new material from the manuscript poetry manuscript that I'm currently working on. But I'm going to start with a poem by Jack Gilbert, an American poet, many of you may know, just because it speaks to some of the poetic concerns that I'm looking at in the new manuscript. So this is Jack Gilbert. Failing and flying. Everyone forgets that Icarus also flew. It's the same when love comes to an end, or the marriage fails and people say they knew it was a mistake, that everybody said it would never work, that she was old enough to know better. But anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Like being there by that summer ocean on the other side of the island, while love was fading out of her, the stars burning so extravagantly those nights that anyone could tell you they would never last. Every morning she was asleep in my bed like a visitation, the gentleness in her like antelope standing in the dawn mist. Every afternoon I watched her coming back through the hot stony field after swimming, the sea light behind her and the huge sky on the other side of that. Listened to her while we ate lunch. How can they say the marriage failed? Like the people who come back from Provence, when it is Provence, say it was pretty but the food was greasy. I believe Icarus was not failing as he fell, but just coming to the end of his triumph. So that's a poem I'm very fond of, and I'll talk about why in a moment, because it relates to some of the concerns in the new manuscript. But first I'm going to read from Some Days I Think I Know Things, the Cassandra poems. And it was published by Signature Editions in 2008. And I know some of you, many of you, in fact, you've probably heard me read from this as it was a work in progress. And then the book came out roughly the week I got divorced. And so I kind of disappeared, and I haven't actually read much from it since. So I'm going to read just a few poems. And hopefully they're not ones that you've already heard me do so often that you're sick of them. And if you are, then God bless you for just sitting there in silence. So I'm going to read a couple of poems from the second section of the book, it's essentially a sexual awakening of Cassandra. And her story is that she was seduced by Apollo, who promised her the gift of prophecy. And she agreed to sleep with him. And so he gave her the gift of prophecy. And then she changed her mind. And he couldn't take the gift back at that point, but he was a little bitter. So he said she would still be able to tell the truth and prophesy, but she would never be believed. And so in this section of the book, I'm trying to kind of reimagine and give her a voice in her own seduction. And in this case, she's having this particular poem. You may remember that Apollo was the sun god, and she's having a little moment of regret. So the poem is called Radiation. A pale girl, resistant to the sun, the day's heat a constant threat. But I stood outside in my long cotton sleeves, coated in sunblock, staring up until my eyes burnt great orange wheels of white light. Dizzy for hours after, seeing spots. Then heat stroke seemed a promising caress. At night, cool pinpricks of light, centuries away, yet here, soothing as after-sun aloe, blocked out all memory of your outer layer, that photosphere of longing. Once, eruptions of energy reaching the earth felt like nuclear reactions, convection heat, and I sang, "Oh, my corona," my desire a luminous filament of hot gas. In time, your brilliance was released. You became lighter and less potent, and this became my every hope, that you had only a billion or so years of heat left. Still, one solar flare, a major seismic wave in the sun's interior leaves me quaking, the Doppler image of my heart radiating toward you still. So I seem to have a little bit of an obsession with the old stories, I mean the really old stories. Right now I'm doing some work. This is a bit odd. Are you guys comfortable up there? Okay.
happens, Rhonda, is that when people are wrapped, they're
Right.
still.
Oh, I see.
And when they're still, the lights go out.
Right, okay. I should read the poem about illumination then. So I'm currently, one of the sections in the new manuscript is called Scenes from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and it's a series of poems about my divorce. And I'm also working on some poems that are around Dante's Inferno. And I just have, for some reason, I have an obsession with these old stories. So this is a piece from the old story of Troy. The day dawned, etc. Truth is, no man is perfect. Hector himself had a mole under his left eye. There were rumors, too, among the girls, pointed laughs of hurry up Hector, how quick he was to come and go. But this was long ago and forgotten when he stood outside the gates of Troy, bare-legged and helmeted before Achilles. The story was, 1,000 warriors on either side held their panicked breaths captive behind breastplates, waiting for a promised end. All details filled in after the fact. The day dawned, etc. Mighty Athena, and so on. Cries from the unsettled birds, then silence, and the perfect heart of Hector beating its liquid name in the dust. So throughout the book, it's sort of seeded with chorus poems. And because this is a retelling of Cassandra alive again as a prophet in the 21st century, the chorus is essentially those voices that as a young woman she would be hearing around her. And the third part of the book is very much, it's a section called The Lost Prophecies, and it's her, the prophecies that she intended to leave behind for this time, and most of them are about environmental apocalypse. And so this particular chorus are those voices that one hears in relation to notions of environmental apocalypse that are perhaps not so believing. So I sort of, there's a tongue-in-cheek dedication to George W. Bush here. On fairy tales, chorus, Friday the 13th. There's the one where three fat little pigs build ever more efficient houses, solar-fueled, LEED ratings, organic bales of straw. Or the one with that dreadlocked, red-cloaked vegan chick, her neurotic nightmares of canine teeth. And then the curse, as weeds choke the forest surrounding a young blonde girl who sleeps the peaceful sleep of the clueless for a century or more, while the green grass grows all around, up and up. Trolls, washed-out bridges, an evil witch, candy cottages containing red dye number 4, hags, harbingers of hurricanes. The sea swallows a naughty village whole, a boy cries wolf, and no one knows what it means. In another world, near here, pieces of the sky are falling, silver glitter on the snow. The last couple of poems in the book are Cassandra's an Old Woman. And so I'll just read, this is the last one from this book, and it's called A Few Last Regrets. Wish not everything had to be so goddamn true all the time. Wish for an open space for a lie, a gap in the teeth of my unlocked mouth. Wish feminism hadn't given up on itself, eaten its young, sent the rest of us out on the parapets to fend for ourselves. Wish I'd taken up drinking, slept with more men. Even now wish for more of them, a collection of marbles in a drawer. Wish crazy was a badge of courage, the mind a playground for more than just me. Wish I'd hired that PR firm. Wish I hadn't said so much. Wish Helen were free. Wish I'd not given up on the gods so soon, that belief was rooted everywhere, soil. Wish truth was beauty, beauty something like truth. Wish I could take it all back and still live. So, so I'm going to read some things from the new manuscript, and as you may have noticed, the Cassandra poems were written in a character voice. So it was a book in which I was able to hide a little bit. And I'm discovering, as I work on this this manuscript, that I missed that. That these poems are more place me in a more vulnerable place as a poet, and I'm not yet fully adapted to that. And to make it worse this evening, I'm going to be reading some drafts. So, apologies. What I love about, and I'm going to fail brilliantly after you've heard that Jack Gilbert poem, because what I love about the poetics of that are the, what we refer to as the accessibility. So those of us in the country and the world that don't actually spend all of our time writing poetry, but like to read poetry every now and again, can actually make our way in. And you may recall a couple years ago there was a Billy Collins sort of manifesto in a Best American Poetry anthology when he talked about, the poem has to have an open window. And I find it a really interesting challenge as a poet to find the open window, but not the wraparound glass house where walking by everybody can see what's going on and you're frankly all a little embarrassed. So I'm going to read a few of these. The book has gone through and continues to go through quite a bit of restructuring, and but it is filled with dedications. So they are poems that were written on a particular occasion, or for particular people, or in response to something. And some of you will have heard this first one already. Smart Boys, for Lorna Crozier. Lorna, I confess for me it was always the smart boys, running smack up against the idea of what a boy should be, the ones you could count on for the answers, though they learned by 13 not to raise their hands first. I wanted to know the secrets they were hiding behind textbooks they'd already read. The boys who worked ahead in math class could calculate the slim probability of you saying yes, yes you would, you'd love to, you couldn't wait. The boys who watched quietly as girls followed hockey boys, basketball boys, soccer boys, and football boys up and down the locker-lined halls. The boys I loved gasped themselves hoarse, hearts in their open mouths as you unhooked your bra in their room after school doing homework. Such enthusiasm. You knew then that they thought they'd never get any ever. No slapshot taken on a breakaway was ever as swift as the comeback my sweet crush Kevin sent flying, comparing hockey jocks to Greek monsters. The kicking and burn from having his face pushed up against the chain-link fence, now long forgotten, but not the swift blood rush of satisfaction when he said Cyclops, and the jock paused mid-punch. Even now, as I write this, I say to my husband, the aerospace engineer, darling, say something smart. And he says, you are the most beautiful woman I've ever known. And what I love are not the words, but the bare few milliseconds it takes him to whip them out. This poem is called Me Too, I Want, and it was written for Bob McPhee. Since I'm on this kick, it was the first boy I ever loved. And there's a line that starts this that is a variation on a line that I took from someone, a male American poet, and I have not brought the notes page with me. I'm thinking it's Galway Canal, but I could be wrong. So if you know it, let me know after. It's the first line. Me Too, I Want, for Bob McPhee. Would I go back to that humming afternoon, when the sun sang everything to us and the cicadas joined in? Zzz, zzz, zzz. Small song for the comfort found in heat. You write me a note and say you want nothing, only to know what I've been doing these last 20 years or so, since we lay ourselves down naked on the grass-strewn hill up behind the Maritime College, and you did that thing you did, the flattened leaves beneath me, your precious mouth, the man who walked by and said hello. You would be 3 days dead before you could stop desiring me. And me. Well, there has been laundry, so many loads I've lost count. Here is a picture of my daughter Emma in her 15th year. She doesn't look like me. She has her own unfolding, and okay, a little like her father. He too came bearing gifts, not yours, but others, and for a year or two it was Christmas. My new husband has never heard of you, and it's too late now to explain how bright the sun was, how it shone there in your face and only for me. Oh, the flattened leaves. It's spring all over again now, and someone must rake the front lawn, but not you. Since I've started blushing, I'm just going to take a break and read something, not quite so close to home. I used to sing in a church choir until very recently. And I am a very poor mezzo-soprano. And we had a brilliant music director who retired, and it struck me that she was one of those people doing a job that she loved so well and that gave so much joy to so many people, and yet it's those jobs that just continually go unrecognized. And so I wanted to write something for her. So this is called Choir Stalls, suite composed for a retiring choir director, for Patricia Williamson. Lux Perpetua. The sopranos climb piously up and down the staircase of melody, careful not to trip in their high, high heels, arms outstretched to bring in the light. Exaudi oratione mea. For depth of listening, seek out altos. This is loyalty in song, the dignified upholding of what must be upheld, and what is faith but repeated call and response. Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison. The tenors will not behave. Surely you begin to pray, Lord, have mercy, until one note, sustained and sustaining, suspends us all in a sweet memory of a boy we knew, a tender age. Much can be forgiven for a song. Plene sunt cele et terrea gloria tua. Old hounds of the bass section lift graying muzzles, bay a blessing of low notes out across the field of pews. All modesty aside, let the angels learn a thing or two about glory, how the body reverberates. From all this, offerings of amateurs in music and in life, some small hosanna must be made. Years from now, still waiting for your missed entrance, we will recall a fragment or two of good sense, instructions we always meant to follow. That was awful, so do it again. This time, don't hesitate. Listen to your neighbor. In this life, there are fortissimo times and sotto voce times. Pay attention to dynamics. Now, watch me. What can be learned from a life given over to song? All this time spent waiting, working for harmony, while others only talk of peace. This is from a poem I wrote. This is a poem I wrote to my daughter's godmother and my best friend Sarah Dover, to whom my book is also dedicated, who's a really radical feminist, eco-warrior chick, and I just love her to death. And I was in Africa on Women's Day, and I wrote this for her. Letter home to my sister, for Sarah Dover. On March 8th in Dakar, I thought of you when a woman dripping in gold tried to sell me a story at a Senegalese hotel. And when I offered a polite Canadian refusal, she shook her gorgeous head and said, "So, this is the solidarity of sisters now." And I thought of you again, when I drank a Coca Light in a village because I couldn't get clean water even with American dollar bills. And again, when inquiring about the ownership of the wildlife preserve, where the story is, one local man makes it legal for 4 Germans to send endangered money home to Berlin. Now, the girl bringing me drinks at the pool is not my sister, and on such a technicality, neither are you, and I want to know, what is this state of sisterhood now? I think of you and me at 20, trading our stories, turning them over like polished stones, your hands holding mine through the clinics and the cramping, and your hands on the head of my baby girl as I practice my football hold and the goal of connecting infant mouth and breast. Here in Senegal, storytellers, les griots, are buried under the baobab tree. Its hollow mouth speaks for them when they are silent. I think for 2 no-commitment girls, we've done quite well with this long-haul love, and I mean to say to you now, sister, I have planted a tree for you in my backyard. And when you die, you can visit yourself there at the small opening, the mouth of the tree, which I will cover in 1,000 tiny, shining stones. So I'm just going to conclude with these 2. These are more recent poems, and the first one is, with great apologies to Grant, a prose poem, who doesn't believe in such things. And it's not in its final version. It's called A Short Treatise on the Nature of Drafts, version 8, from Mark Salter. You intended to go to Paris or the Costa del Sol, tickets, check, passport, check. At 1 in the morning, it seems all the varied and fascinating details of your life will culminate in this one trip. But waking, late, befuddled, you find that despite your best efforts with compass and map, here you are in the middle of goddamn downtown Milwaukee. You can't figure a way out. You may be lost for days, or the trip may be abandoned. You're Michelangelo working in Fimo clay. You meant to work harder on it, or longer, or wake up earlier, or just whip it off between the dentist visit and your own self-care, but not having had the time, you're happy still to claim it as yours, because who could blame you for that crucial missing bit in the middle, that part right at the pivotal turn which now careens in disorder, but one day soon will be a silver Porsche 911 licking the Italian coastline. Never let the draft drive. Your draft is a toddler with a lisp and a club foot and will be just fine, thank you, if only you can manage to let it grow into itself. Don't rush. A precocious draft is anathema. The trick is to grow up with all virtues intact. You must approach a draft with trepidation, the tentative toes of a young ballerina in her first point shoes, the shiny pale pink of all things untried. Have you noticed how a woman's nipples darken after she's had her first child? True also of drafts, meaning every sexy thing takes its own sweet time. If you would love a draft, take a nap with it and stroke its temple tenderly while it sinks into its happy place. Don't offer directions. The draft must find this place on its own. Like everything else you've ever loved, the draft expects your attention even in the moments you are half asleep, even when you'd rather be doing something, anything else, even when you're trying to forget it, even when you would lie and say you have forgotten it, it was just a fling, you barely remember its names. The draft loves your lying self the way a footballer loves the ref. And they shall know a draft by its myriad complications. The draft has a maze only the gardener could love. Don't say you should have known better. Admit defeat only if useful, only if it will feed the hungry draft. So I'm going to close with this one, and in fact I've read it recently, but I'm trying to get to another draft of it, so I'm going to read it again tonight and inflict it on you. It is called Lines for a Boy of 5 I've Almost Met, and it was written for Rowan. I don't know what they tell you about the day you were almost, and then almost not. Born at too few weeks, your skin like a baby bird's, translucent, untouchable. You, this featherless, featherweight tonnage of love. They could almost look through you to the uncertain future. Your dad, who's been your dad since before, when you were not even almost yet, says, you know, bad prognosis. You know, probably not able to interact with the world. You know, we didn't know. When you could finally be held, little kissy cantaloupe, 2 wee handfuls of everything, teeny tiny incarnate, glorious pigeon of hopes, kittenate, condensed Cole's notes of a child, barely even a cabbage. I don't know if they tell you that when they placed you on his naked chest, you know, crashed, as in almost, or almost not. Your dad says that's the only time I lost it. He lies, your dad, human animal, but means to say he cried. As you grow, yay growth, yay the extreme weight of giggles in the bath. You will watch your dad sit, stare at things, computer screen, books, papers, bills. You won't notice you were watching, and neither will he, until one night you, sleepless with a child of your own, yay growth, yay the carry-on bags underneath our eyes. You will see him sit. Maybe it's on your tiny second-hand sofa, your too small apartment. Your dad, lined and gray, slightly concave, his body bent, protecting that space in the center of his chest, where you were almost, and then almost not. Thank you.